Hi there, my name is Steve Chmilar. Welcome to my studio and to my channel. If you're not yet familiar with my work, I make paintings like this, and drawings like this, and this. And speaking of drawings, the one you saw in the thumbnail, it's called The World Builders. That one is the feature of this episode. So stick along with me. I'm actually going to watch it along with you right now and kind of narrate it and react to the time lapse, so to speak. So let's get right into it. So here I'm going to start with thoughts more about the technical process, but here on my channel I really want to speak more about the less common, juicy stuff like subject matter, the big ideas, personal philosophy, the why, all that kind of thing. So please stick around for the second half of the video where I get more into that. So in this section, I'm starting with a rehearsal sheet, which means that I have another piece of paper. It's not a nice, expensive piece of archival paper, so it doesn't feel as I don't feel nervous drawing on it. It's just to plot things out, to actually design the composition. And it's exactly the same size as the other drawing, which I think was about 15 by 15 inches. So this is a pretty standard way of blocking things in. I'm just putting very simple straight lines to locate where the characters are going to be, the general design of the composition, getting into specifics here. I'm just doing this so that I can avoid having to make so many eraser marks on my final nice paper once I actually start on that. Then I realized I had a problem. So out came the eraser. Oops. So I erased and started to redesign because this is the stage in the drawing where everything has to be done to your liking before you actually really get committed to the medium and start to push harder on the pencil. Because at that stage, of course, you can't really erase very easily. Even though this is just a rehearsal sheet, of course, I'm using this sheet so that I don't have to erase so much on the nice paper once I start on that. I still will, of course, but not quite as much. I won't have to make major changes the way that I'm making them on this sheet here. When I was younger, I honestly feel that this kind of the process, making things feel kind of realistic, three-dimensionally believable, it was arduous and it really felt painful. And I must say, I feel like I was kind of lazy about it. I really just wanted to have instant gratification and have something look good. So I know that if I push through and I keep struggling until I finally get something that makes sense, then it's all worth it in the end, because putting a lot of time into rendering fine details and gradients, chiaroscuro, all of that, before you do that, you want to really make sure the design is great. And part of the design to me is the character feeling, so I will often look to some inspirations. I often look to artists like Jean-François Millet, Honoré Daumier, these artists that were able to kind of simplify the human form a little bit, because I think that what they were really going for was the emotion and just the feeling of the character rather than trying to portray an actual person. That's not what I'm doing here. I need the feeling of that character to be successful as you would want an actor in a movie to be, right? They have to portray the character properly. They have to have a certain kind of a look to them. And without that, I think the whole drawing falls apart. To be honest, this little section that I'm working on here, erasing the face, trying it again, that's probably about 1 or 2% of the entire surface area on this drawing. And yet, that's where the eye of the viewer will go when they first see your work. So if you have a figure in your drawing or painting, I've mentioned this before in previous videos, you really have to make sure you feel fantastic about that. And everything else after that, if you feel good about it, everything else is icing on the cake. It really is. I've seen a lot of drawings and paintings where people put a ton of time into background details and the figure is sort of just one of those details. So once I got the mouth of the character feeling a little bit better, that ties into the subject matter as well. I wanted this kind of ooh kind of expression, like he's somewhat bewildered by what he's seeing. I was erasing here compositional problems. There was some things that were kind of happening. The more you learn about composition, the better. There's one general rule, not a rule per se, but just a guideline in composition called no kissing. That's one way to put it. That's the way that I've heard before. And that means that objects, if the foreground object runs just barely touching the background object, sometimes it can look kind of awkward. So what I'm trying to do here is make sure that the foreground book and the easel that it's on intersects over top of the river in the background in a way that doesn't create any kind of weird conflict. This is really the dry stuff here. I think this is something that's often not spoken about. But this little part here where I'm tracing the rectangle is just showing a negative space shape. And we can always make things look a bit more excited when we think about active shapes. Active shapes generally have like a wedge, something that looks like it's moving in some kind of a way, diagonals. This is a diagonal kind of rectangle space between the book and the face, but I think it could be a little bit better. So I'm going to think about that as I redraw it. I know that I'm eventually going to have trees in that area, and they will also help to break up the diagonal. Then when I made this feel better, I also realized that I had another shot of this gesture that I liked more because the arm was kind of like bent a bit more, so it was kind of like more interesting than this one, which to me just feels like a straight line. So again, I'm going to replace that character. Gotta do it! And so here I go again, more or less. Erase, 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 erase. I really like these brown erasers, by the way. They're great for removing graphite. They're messy, probably the most crumbly erasers, but they work really well for this. Yes, what you see is accurate. I am using a projector here, but I think I'm allowed. I spent a lot of time drawing the original design, and I just want to get on to the next part on the nice paper as quick as possible. So I am taking my original design that I drew and I'm just moving on for economic reasons. And now for the remainder of this video, I'm going to speak about what really drives my entire artistic process and career, which is subject matter. The questions of the what and why we choose to draw or paint our chosen topics and themes. Now, this type of process differs greatly from drawing from life or from a finished photo reference. Once you get to a certain level with drawing, copying what is already in front of you becomes easy. So the next frontier is to invent our subject matter, mostly but not completely from imagination. Borrowing from some photo references, but here and there, but not relying on them completely. Contrary to what many folks out there might guess, it actually takes a lot more specialized training to make something like this from imagination than to copy something like this from a photograph. So for this drawing, again, I designed the composition from imagination in a smaller sketch first, and then gathered a few photo references after to help guide the design into somewhat of a higher level of realism. And that is a major point that I must reiterate. I'm not looking to the world that already exists to make art, for example, taking a photograph and projecting it onto a canvas, but rather I'm starting from imagination and then looking to reality to help me fill in some of the gaps that I haven't yet memorized from more than a decade of studying light. It takes a really long time. I hope to get there by 2039. So you may see in some sections of this video that I have already used a colored pencil. It is a peach colored pencil, the Prismacolor Colorase. I decided to do that for almost all of the midtones. So it was something that I just had to keep, once I started, I had to keep going with it. But that's another technical thing, and I said I wouldn't talk about that. I want to keep on the train of thinking about the why and the subject matter, because there really is quite a lot to talk about here. The actual theme of this drawing is what is going to be given away kind of on the book. And that's something that I think that the conceptual, contemporary, postmodern influenced art world doesn't usually want to see. If there's writing in that kind of work, they usually want to see something that's maybe a little bit nihilistic or enigmatic in some way that really requires a lot of interpretation. And sometimes the artists maybe that are writing something on artwork in that way don't even actually understand it themselves, but it automatically provokes thought because we don't really understand it. The writing on this book actually is about the world builder's theme, and it centers on the idea that I personally don't feel that we can understand something unless we build it from scratch. And by that I mean not like the analogy of taking apart a watch to understand how it works and then trying to put it back together. I'm talking about like actually designing a watch from scratch, like developing the need to design the watch from scratch and go through all the trials and tribulations of failed designs and then build upon that. I think if we understand things to that level, then there's so much more to what guides our process going forward, or our understanding of the world entirely, not just of art. This drawing is actually about the idea that we're creating a world not so that we can escape from the real world. And I think that's something that the contemporary art world might pigeonhole fantasy art. They might say that with that it's all about escapism. But the world builder's idea here is that we are actually building to understand. It's like if I build something from scratch, then I can really understand it. And I can reiterate that point with this little shot here that I'll put up on the screen now. This was a tiny model that I built with clay for the mountains. And even in doing that, trying to construct my own mountains, I feel like it taught me something about geology and just, I don't know if I'm using the proper word, but the study of mountains, right? Like just the physical forms, why things look the way that they do. Now the third word that I did not yet speak about that happens to appear on the book in the writing on this drawing is the word imitate, to copy, to mimic, mimesis. That is something that the contemporary art world, I believe, does not necessarily see as a special thing from the realist world. To copy something does not necessarily mean that we have created an original thing and brought it into the world. It means that we are exercising what I would call a kind of one-dimensional skill, which I think to many seems like a very tall mountain to climb. Just to be able to copy something accurately, I'm sure a lot of you are struggling with that. And I believe there are many ways to train yourself to be able to do that. I will have courses available that deal with these things eventually, so I would love to hear from you if you would like to see a course. And if you would like to, also you can send me a message, go on my website and sign up for my email list, and I will notify you when I do have courses available. I would like to have things that talk about the rudiments of imaginative realism, so on and so on. All right, so I will wrap up now because I feel like I'm getting above my own level. I don't understand what I'm talking about anymore. I'm trying to be too profound. So all I will say is that I'm going to leave you with the final pan of the finished drawing and let you know that you can actually get a print of this drawing for a nice affordable price on my website. You can see the link in the description. Go there. It is a signed print. Why not support living artists? There's enough dead ones that get a lot of money thrown their way. What else might I say instead?
You don't have to sell the work.
Yeah. Go get the print. That's probably already said. Yeah, thanks for watching. Please don't subscribe. I want to shrink my following as much as possible.
What are you doing?
I like that kind of humor. It's my style. It's reverse psychology.